Hi, everybody. The scriptures are a historical account of many people of faith over time who have faced difficult circumstances in life, and how God has always worked in those circumstances to redeem and bring about good things in the midst of those circumstances, because God always keeps his promises, and God is always working for our good. One of the stories is the story that you might be familiar with of Ruth and her mother in law, Naomi. And the story takes place about 1200 BC, over 3,000 years ago. There was a famine in the land of Israel in Bethlehem, which is ironic because Bethlehem in Hebrew means house of bread. But Naomi and her family left their home because of a famine, and they set out to a place called Moab, which tells you how desperate they were because the Israelites and the Moabites were enemies for decades and centuries. So they left their home, and over the course of time, Naomi lost her husband, Elimelech. He died, as well as her two sons, who had married Moabite women. And so as she turns to go back to the land of Israel, she's a dejected and a beaten down woman who really has a very bleak future. She has no husband or male protection. They've sold the family land to leave, and she has no sons to take care of in her old age. She's probably too old to marry again and have children. And so, as she turns to go home, Ruth and her sister-in-law Orpah meet Naomi on the road and say, "Let us go with you." But Naomi says, "I have no future. Stay here with your people and make a future for yourself here. Why go with me?" But of course, we know the words of Ruth, those famous words, "Where you go, I will go." And usually it stops there. But Ruth also said to her that your God is now my God, and your God will be my God. So in the time that Naomi was in Moab, Ruth came to know the living God. Well, they return to Israel, and God takes care of them. They step out. Ruth steps out in faith and is a righteous woman, and God watches over both her and Naomi. A man named Boaz, a distant relative of Naomi, ends up marrying Ruth and becomes what's known as a kinsman redeemer. Naomi is able to acquire her land back again through Boaz, and Boaz and Ruth eventually have a child named Obed. And at the end of this story, you see a genealogy. Obed is the father of Jesse. Jesse becomes the father of David, who will eventually become King David, the greatest king in Israel's history, and the one whom the Lord promised his line would live forever. And so when you open up the first chapter of the book of Matthew, the very first chapter in the New Testament, the first gospel, you'll see a genealogy. And in that genealogy, you will see Ruth, Boaz, Jesse, and King David. And so God redeemed what looked like a hopeless situation. In fact, Naomi went back to her hometown and said to the people, no longer call me Naomi, call me Mara, which means bitter. But you see, God hadn't changed her name. Only God can change someone's name. And so while she was bitter and was without hope, God had a plan for them. And God honored Ruth's faithfulness. And so all things work for good for those that love God. So in this time of trials, this time of famine, in a sense, a shortage of what we're normally used to, um, remember the story of Ruth and Naomi. Stay grounded in the scriptures and see yourself as part of God's plan, that we are in that genealogy. Even though we may not play as big a part as some people, we all have a part to play. Our task is to remain faithful, pray, stay connected to your community of faith however you can, and to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. And God will take care of the rest. We do not have to be called bitter, but we can be called those who are chosen and loved by God. May God bless you and keep you. And I look forward to the day when we can worship again today and do ministry again. God bless you.